You definitely need some 3D printed wasp gauntlets to go with that wasp cosplay that you're working on. So in this video, we'll be covering the file that I used, my 3D print settings, how to size your wasp gauntlets, priming and painting. Let's do this.
Hi, Tracy here from Astrocyte Cosplay. If you've bought or made your own Wasp Cosplay suit and you're looking for some awesome upgrades, you're in the right spot. Today we're going to be following my build of my 3D printed Wasp Gauntlets to go with my Wasp Cosplay suit. If you watch my Wasp Cosplay suit review, you'll know that the accessories that came with that weren't that great and I was always looking to upgrade. It actually didn't come with any Wasp Gauntlets either, so I thought this would be a perfect first project on my 3D printer. I found this free file on Thingiverse by Happy Moon. He's actually modelled all of the Ant-Man and the Wasp armour pieces. So I thought I'd tackle the Wasp Gauntlets first, but if there's any others here that you'd love to see as a project, just leave a comment below and I'll look at maybe prioritising that as the next project. But today we're specifically going to be focusing on these Wasp Gauntlets. They easily fit on an Ender 3, which is what I have. So we're going to just download the file. So we click download the file here. So here we are in Ultimaker Cura. This is the slicing software I've been using for my 3D printing. It's just a free program you can download off the internet. So we're just going to drop in the file that we just downloaded. You'll notice that it orientates it very interestingly, but we will go over orientation a little bit later on. So first things first, you'll know if you've been into cosplay for a little while that sizing of any of your props and armor is definitely one of the most challenging things that you'll do in cosplay. So we're actually going to jump over to a program called NatFab, and that's going to help us measure some of that and hopefully get the right sizing for our Wasp Gauntlet. So here we are in NetFab. This is what we're going to use to resize our Wasp Gauntlet. We're just going to drop in the original STL file. So we've got that in there. Now I just took a very rough measurement of my wrist using a ruler to get the width and the depth. And then from there we're going to use this new measuring tool. So we just click into there and we want to click on one side. So we're looking for the inside measurement. Trying to click in a straight sort of line to get a rough sort of idea of a measurement. It doesn't need to be perfect as we are going to print a test ring in the next step, so I will show you how to do that also. So we can also do it this way to get another idea, trying to get roughly straight. So you can see here in millimeters we know how wide and deep each part of it is. So now using that as a guide, if we go back to our original one, going into part and going scale, we have a few options to scale. We can specify a target size, but this is going to do the outside millimeters of the thing, but we need the inside millimeters. So I opted for the percentage here. So say we want to do 125%, make sure that the fixed scaling ratio is on so that it sizes in all directions, the X, Y, and Z in the same motion. So we just hit scale and that will up it. So now we can do another measurement to see if that's roughly a little bit better for our wrist size. There you go. And again on the other side. So we're doing that. And now you can see that we've gone from a 34mm to a 43mm. So you can continue to do this until you get the size that you think is going to fit your wrist. And then we're going to, when you're happy with that, we're going to export the STL. So we go to part, export part, and we're going to export as an STL. And then just save it where you want to save that. So here we are back in Cura again. We're just going to drop in that resized Wasp Gauntlet that we just did. So here we have it here. Now we're going to print a test ring first. So what we want to do is reposition this so that it just prints a little ring. So if we go over here, we have a rotation tool. So this can be a little bit fiddly. but we're just going to try to rotate it until it drops on its end in this case. There we go there. And using this tool here, this will allow us to move it up and down. So we're going to drop it right through the print bed, because the only stuff that will print is what is above the print bed. So get that low enough so that it prints a good ring, but we don't want a whole heap to waste time. So we've put that through there now. That's looking pretty good here. I have been printing with a 0.16mm layer height when you've got a lot of detail, but in this case it's only a test ring, so a 0.2mm would be fine. You can up your speed a little bit to 60, and I have also been printing with rafts just to get a little bit more adhesion and to ensure that the print's going to make it. And just hit slice. So it's telling us it's going to take 1 hour and 56 minutes and use 17 grams of filament. Now, this might seem like a long time, but in the scheme of things of printing a whole wasp gauntlet and it being the wrong size, that it's better to spend the 2 hours and make sure you're getting the right size than spending the whole time printing and it being the wrong size. So if we just hit preview, we can go up and down the layer heights. You should always preview print just to see that it's going to survive, and you can stop any issues as they happen. Now, you could probably stop your print on the actual printer at about this point here, because you're really not going to need the rest of it. So once you can see a good test ring, you could stop it on your printer. So then we're going to hit save to file. Now, when you've got your USB in, you would select your USB and then just save that to your removable drive, and that's going to go into your printer. So at this point, we've printed our test ring, we're happy with the sizing of it, and we're going to print our final wasp gauntlet. So from this, we're going to just bring it back up onto the plate. Now, you wouldn't want to print like this. The amount of supports that he's going to need to generate all of here to be able to print this will be a lot, and it's going to take a lot of filament and a lot of time, and it may not actually survive. So the better orientation that I found, now there may be several ways you may find a better orientation to do your own, but the one that I found was quite good was to have it sitting down this way. And if we might be able to get it to lay flat there on the bed. Okay, so here you can see underneath all the red parts are the parts that Cura thinks that it needs supports on. The main parts hitting the bed plate at the moment are here. So on this one, you can see this gap here. It's going to need supports here for this to be able to survive, and it can't print in midair, so it is going to need some supports under here. So when we go over to our settings, I think I did print this at a 0.16mm layer height. Given that there's not that much detail though, you could easily get away with a 0.2mm layer height if you wanted to speed up the time and maybe do a little bit more post-processing. So if we go down to, I did a 15% infill density and a gyroid pattern on this, 200 degree printing temperature and a 60 degree bed temp. Now just make sure whatever PLA or PLA plus that you're using the right temperatures based on the guide on your PLA. I normally print at about 50 for my machine. I found this the best so far to avoid those layer heights. And now the main one here, we're going to, if this might be ticked off your supports, so we are going to tick on your supports. And these are some of the defaults here, and I normally pick a raft. So let's have a look at that. We will slice that and see what it's going to look like. Okay, so this is telling us it's going to take 14 hours and 2 minutes and use 82 grams of filament here. So like I said before, we have a preview of it, and we can see that it wants to generate a lot of supports all around here, even up into the tops here, as it thinks that it needs it. I found that my printer didn't really need those, so we can change all that by, if we go here and we just want touching the build plate, it will only try and support underneath here what is actually touching. And we will actually change the support density here down, because you don't want it too hard so that you can't get it off your print, but you want it strong enough to be able to support the rest of your print. The overhang angle is probably a little bit low there, so let's just up it a little bit to 60. And then let's try slicing that one again and see if we've reduced any of the time or the filament requirements. Okay, so we have dropped the time a little bit and a bit of filament there. Let's have a look at the preview again now. Okay, so it's definitely removed the support requirements up here and around the rim, but we are still getting a fair bit here. So when I was doing my print, I actually used a custom support blocker here. So this little button here, you may need to go into your marketplace and add this if you don't see it. But we click this little button and we can add little blocks that will block your support. So if we just click, and we're just going to keep going all the way around until we've got that covered. Okay, so now all these blocks can be individually moved as well. So if we click on one of these rather than the whole model, we can move these up. You can move these, position them where you need to position them so that they're all nicely aligned along the edge. That sort of thing. You can also resize these just like you know it would with the scaling. So you've got a few options there just to get them nice. So let's try slicing that one again. So you can see my support blocking here hasn't been the best, but you basically just continue that process until you get, I would get all of these off your model, because you definitely didn't need these. You mainly just needed the ones underneath and the raft, and mine survived. Okay, you can see here now that we've gone and got all those support blockers in. We've removed all of that extra support that wasn't really needed. We have a little bit around the bottom still, but that's fine. But you can see that we've knocked off a couple of hours and some grams of filament off here to do our print. So you can keep playing with this. Once you're happy with it, we're going to hit save to file, and you're going to save to your removable drive ready to load into your printer.
Question for cosplayers: what was the first thing that you 3D printed and how did it turn out? Leave a comment below. So with your print hot off the printer, we're just going to remove those supports. You may need your clippers to help out with this, and you will get a few rough bits. So we're just going to knock down with our palm sander the very big layer lines. I'm just using a 120 grit sandpaper here to do that. Then just using a sanding pad to get into those hard reach places, about a 150 grit. Now we're just going to use some automotive primer filler. This really helps just to fill in those layer lines that you may have missed in the sanding process. And some more sanding. So just continue to go up in your sanding grits. Just keep feeling until you think that you're getting to a smooth consistency. You can continue doing this as long as you want till you're happy. So we'll get some deeper imperfections in your print. Now I'm just using some wood filler to fill in those, adding a little bit of water just to smooth it and to be able to apply it a little bit easier, and pushing into all those deep holes. Now after that's dried, being wood filler, we can give it a bit of a sand and smooth it right down, and you can see that it's filled in those large imperfections. Next we're just going to hit it with this flat grey primer by Rust-Oleum. This really will show any of those imperfections or layer lines that you may have missed and that you may need to redo, and also gets it ready for paint. So you can see here the difference that it makes just with all that sanding and the filler primers and primers. All those layer lines have definitely improved. You can see I've still got a few imperfections, so the process now is just to continue on with filling and sanding until we get rid of those. So this is about a 400 grit, and now we've moved up to about a 600 grit, and I'm doing some wet sanding. Now this really smooths down those final layer lines, gets a nice finish on your piece. So on to painting, hitting this just with a gloss Rust-Oleum black. Nice base coat under it, as we will be using a metallic silver, and that just gives it a nice shine. So make sure you go light on. We can do some more coats. You don't want to have drips. So time for a clear coat after that's dried. I'm pretty happy with how these are turning out. Pretty smooth, nice and clear, and this is where it goes horribly wrong. So the silver metallic that I was using, it does say clear coat not recommended, but I had used it on my Wasp helmet before, so I was prepared for it to dull it. But I got this massive orange peel. So I'm not sure if it was just too thick or too cold when I sprayed it, but I had to completely re-sand all this down and repaint the silver. So in the end, it did turn out. They still look great, but I was a bit disappointed.
To further help you with your Wasp cosplay, make sure you check out our Ant-Man and the Wasp cosplay series by clicking on the link. If you found this tutorial helpful and you'd like to see more like it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you over there.